This is the time I met Doug DeMuro. Yeah, he actually does that fairly often. I don't know if you've noticed, but the this in "this is Doug DeMuro" has gotten like more accentuated. But I did meet Doug DeMuro. At the end of his videos, it says basically email him if you have a cool car that he might want to check out. And I actually emailed him pretty early on in the process when I was specking and getting my McLaren Senna. And that was a really cool process. So we could talk about that. If anyone gives a crap, you can ask me about it, and I can tell you about that. But I went over and did the specking process over in Surrey, England, at the McLaren headquarters there, and it was rad. So I emailed him, and he actually responded back in a relatively short period of time saying, hey, yeah, that's something that I'm interested in. He talked about timeline. I told him where I was, apparently as like a friend in San Antonio. So he's like, okay, well, that'd give me an excuse to go out and see her. I just stayed in touch. I kept him up to date on kind of where we're at in the process. I sent him over pictures of it, of kind of where it was. And it got to the point where I got the car and I began to set up a time with him. And he actually was supposed to end up reviewing Salamandrin's McLaren Senna that actually burned to the ground, if you remember that. But he was supposed to review that car, and that means that he wouldn't have reviewed my car, which was fine. He just emailed me and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. You know, when can we get together? Blah, blah, blah. And he did ask before he came out. He kind of wanted some information about the car prior. He wanted like the window sticker, any sort of details on the car, price list, that kind of stuff. And if you actually watch the video, he emphasizes a lot of those things, like the bottle opener that was, I don't even remember how much it was, $6,000 or something like that. And he wanted to definitely know some of that. So on the day of the shoot, we ended up shooting it at XPEL, which does a lot of paint protection film. It was raining, so I needed something indoors that had really good light, and so I was able to reach out to my buddy Chris, who is kind of the manager of that location, and set it up. So we set it up. It was good for XPEL. It was good for me. I actually was able to negotiate a little bit of a good deal where, because of the exposure that XPEL got, I mean, if you look at the Doug DeMuro video on the Senna, it has 5 million views. So they were going to get some good car eyes on it, and I actually worked out a deal that my next car, which I think ended up being the McLaren 720S Spider, I was able to take it over to XPEL, and they were able to wrap it for free, $0, no big deal. So they did it for free, stealth wrap, and I was really happy about that. So that was a win. But when Doug showed up, he actually showed up in a Nissan GTR, which I thought was cool. He had rented it through Turo, which he had some sort of agreement or sponsorship with. And then he just started talking, and he chatted with me, and we spent a lot of time just kind of talking and walking over and looking at the different components of the car. He wanted to know what I thought of it, how I use it. And we spent probably a half hour, 45 minutes where he was just kind of getting to know me and getting to know the car and asking a lot of cool questions. And then he said, okay, well, I'm going to start the filming, and you're more than welcome to stay. It's your car if you want to stay. But if you don't, that's fine too. And I just said, well, what do you prefer? And he says, well, I prefer to do it by myself. And I get it. I mean, I'm sitting here filming myself, and trust me, if someone was watching, it would be more embarrassing than it already is. But he started the filming, did all the filming. It took about 2.5 hours. That's when he did the drive. That's when he did that. And then he ended up texting me, hey, I'm headed back over to XPEL. I went back and we kind of talked, and he gave me his response and his feedback on it. And then a couple of weeks later, the video came out. We kind of stay in touch on things that are interesting. Like when I ended up buying like a Genesis GV80. I think I asked him about that. We talked about his Land Rover that he bought, and the 4GT. I mean, he's a car guy, for sure a car guy, absolutely a car guy. He was super nice. One thing that did surprise me is he cussed more than I would have thought. I don't know. He just kind of always seemed almost like Mormon to me or something. So I was a little bit surprised by that. He let the F word fly, and I appreciated that. I mean, he was just a dude, and it was really cool. It was cool to be able to meet him. It was cool to be able to kind of see his process of how he goes about it, and that actually kind of was the very first exposure that got me interested in having some sort of content creation channel. So that's the time I met Doug DeMuro. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Anything else, kind of backstory. I have looked through all the comments. I've watched the video, obviously a long time ago, but he definitely kind of skewered the car. It's not me, on the looks. And I agree. He gave it a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I agree. It's a 7 out of 10. The P1 definitely looks better. But he had a lot of really cool things to say about the car, and that car was a machine. It was magical on a track. It was the favorite thing I've ever seen on the car review of that. Go and watch it. Is the Top Gear one where Jeremy Clarkson says that it's held to the ground by witchcraft, which I thought was hilarious. But the car was truly amazing. Doug DeMuro, stand-up guy, really good guy. I wish him all the success. I ended up actually selling my GT4 through Cars and Bids, and we kind of communicated through that process as well. That's the time I met Doug DeMuro, and he came and reviewed my car. Please like and subscribe the video. I've now switched over to this new account, so like and subscribe really helps the algorithm. Stay tuned for more.